My name is Joan, and I am your host for Hawks on the Wire, a podcast by Three Hawks Haven. I am so happy to be back with our listeners. I hope everyone is doing well. Our guests share the challenges that they face in their lives, and we always listen with respect and compassion. And today I would like to welcome our guest, Kelly Riska. And would you like to tell us what city? Where are you from, Kelly?
Originally, I am from Minnesota.
Mhm.
So I lived there and was born, raised there 20 some years. And then I went off to school and ended up here in Louisville, Kentucky, 30
Okay.
years ago. So I've
Okay.
been here about 30 years now.
And
I'm married and I have one son. He's grown, 24.
mhm.
And so we live right in the city. Um, and I have my biggest project this summer is working on the backyard and making a garden. I planted a lot of native plants, to Kentucky.
Oh, very
So
good.
yeah, I'm just creating a little sanctuary there. That's real important to me to be out in nature, and that's where I really feel connected
Hmm.
spiritually. And yeah, so I um, also like to create. I'm a very creative person, and I just do my own thing. Freelance, artist, mixed media art, and drawing, painting, different found objects, sometimes fabric, whatever I can get my hands on.
Very
It's
good.
fun.
Well, thank you for sharing about yourself, beautiful lady. I know today we're going to talk about your mother and how you and
Yes,
your brother needed to make a decision. She was living alone in her own home, and things were changing for her health wise, and you
yes.
decided that she needed to move into assisted living.
Yes. It had been maybe a few years. At least a handful of years. I've noticed her decline and doing less and less, and wanting to do less and less as far as um, just majority of her life. She's a housekeeper, stayed at home. So doing housework was her life, and she was very meticulous and took pride in doing that. And then when I saw she was not doing it too much, I knew something was up. And then she just really slowed down. And then her memory started to get poor as far as her short term memory and remembering things that were said or just done a few hours ago. And so and then she started to neglect her self care, not bathing herself. And I know she had some incontinence, which I tried to get her to use some kind of, pads or a brief to wear. And she just didn't want to do that. And then this past winter in January, end of January, she had a heart attack. And I have an older brother that lives near her in Wisconsin. And she's been living there for almost 30 years. And so, anyway, he brought her to the hospital. She had some surgery, put a stent in, and then she recovered really nicely from that. And then she went to rehab for actually almost 2 months. Well, in
Mhm.
rehab, they discovered she had a pressure ulcer on her bottom. And so they ended up treating that. Physical therapy did with some, um, it's called dimothermy, some kind of device. And they were able to skill her for the 2 months, even though she was pretty much done with physical therapy and occupational therapy. She stayed for that to clear up this wound. And then, so my brother and I, his name is Terry,
Mhm.
and we had actually, I'd talked to my mom before this, long before this, about going into assisted living. And she actually thought it might be a good idea because she could tell that she was needing more and more care.
How did she feel?
And
How did she feel about the changes in her
how
life?
did you know that? Um, she she had mixed emotions. She liked her little house and she kind of wanted to stay there, but at the same time, she just knew she needed some help. And I supported her on that. And I would advocate living, going to assisted living. And we even, actually December before the heart attack in January, I went up there and my brother and I and she went to visit an assisted living place. And she liked it. And unfortunately, she did not qualify because it was for more low income persons. And she has a monthly income that's from my dad, pension.
Okay.
So it was too much. And then, so it was kind of back to the drawing board. And I was, so I kept pursuing, looking for a place. And I did it mostly myself from the just the internet. I did talk to some agency called My Place for Mom, which I don't know if I can say that, but I did. Anyway, so they were just marginally helpful.
Okay.
Anyway,
I understand you're living in Louisville.
Yeah.
Your mom's living in Wisconsin. So you were having to do this a lot by either emails, the internet, and telephone.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And we thought we had this one assisted living place all wrapped up, but they kept hem-hawing because of the virus. And well, we got to maybe talk to somebody else. And then, oh, we need you to fill out this form. And, normally we, before we admit someone into our facility, we have to see them in person. And they weren't willing to do that. And anyway, I figured out that they just didn't want her. They weren't going to do it right now because this was in April. So, the virus kind of speeded up there towards the end of March, middle March. And
yes.
So places were very reluctant. And I looked upon one that said, oh, sure, she can come. And we actually admitted somebody else last week. And so I thought, great, let's do it. Sight unseen, you could see a few pictures on the internet. Person on the phone sounded, enthusiastic and positive. So I thought, well, we'll just go for it. And so we did.
What did your brother, he was kind of on board with all this?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, he could. It took him a little while to see that, even though he's definitely saw her more than I did. And he's actually her power of attorney. So he's in charge, and he took charge of her, say, finances and medical things quite some time ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So he's been doing that quite a bit and doing a good job. And so, but it was, when I would see her, which was maybe every other month or not quite that much, but I just noticed more decline. And I would sort of point that out to him.
How did it affect your relationship?
He, it was, I could tell that it was difficult for him at times, for sure, because he had a lot on his plate. And because he's close to her, seeing her all the time.
Yes.
And but he definitely could tell her memory was poor. He didn't have a good feel for how well she was taking care of herself or not taking care of herself, like I am, because I've worked in healthcare all my career for almost 40 years as an occupational therapist, and that's my number one, helping people with their self-care skills. Sure. So I knew that she was neglecting in that area.
How did you feel, Kelly, about it? I know this had to have been such a challenge, these changes in your mom.
Well, actually, it was somewhat gradual, and so, but I don't, since I've worked in healthcare and worked majority with adults and seniors, it wasn't a surprise, really. And I was able to, it is sad, and yet it's just part of the process of aging, and I know that. I did take care of my father when he was aging, and he had dementia, and he got to the point, he also had a physical problem where he couldn't walk. He had spinal stenosis, and so he was in pain, and it was hard to know how much. But I took care of him. I had him in assisted living as well, and then I actually was in charge of his. I was his legal guardian, so I took care of everything
Okay.
else.
So you had kind of been through this before, beautiful lady.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So.
I understand. And what about how do you feel about the reversal of the roles there? You and your brother were having to really kind of get in there more as a parent in a way, to help care for your mother. That's
Oh
that's a
yeah.
challenge, huh?
It is a challenge, especially unfortunately it was mostly on my brother's shoulders since he's there most of the time. And of course my mother would balk because she didn't like to be told what to do. And she still doesn't.
Yes.
And my father was a little more easygoing. He's kind of like, okay, just whatever I said, and it's like, okay, this is good. My mother's different story. The thing is, roles have been kind of reversed for some time. I'm talking since I was a child. So that is not something new necessarily. And so, for my brother, though, I think it's a little bit different. I think he's a little bit more emotionally attached to her, connected, dependent on her than I am. I've separated myself, I moved away, and so I've just learned to know that she's only capable of giving what she can give, and she is where she's at, and I just kind of go with that. And right now, I did even a few weeks ago, actually, I was considering moving up there and taking care of her, like I'm supposed to, like something inside me said, oh, I should do this, I should really do this, I'm supposed to do this.
This is what a daughter
not
would
her,
do.
yeah, not her living in this tiny little room in this assisted living, paying a lot of money. And I even broached my mother about it, and she simply said no. She's like, no, I don't want you to take care of me. And no, you can't leave your husband. You need to stay home and live your life. So, and she I believe her. She's not one to want to be taken care of or to be fussed over at all. Anything extraordinary. And so and my brother wasn't super keen on it because he would have to help me physically, in a physical way. So it is just that just confirmed my decision that we made the right choice. And because she wasn't safe in the home by herself, she was not, like I said, not only neglecting her self-care, I don't think she was eating right. And then towards the end, of course, towards that heart attack, she wasn't taking her medications.
Yes.
A lot of things. So
I really admire your awareness there, Kelly, and that you were willing to really look at the situation. And I appreciate your honesty too, how you're talking about this, what's been going on with you and your brother and your mom.
Yeah. It's it's an ongoing, just like any relationship. And but there's a lot of dynamics that sort of stay the same, I guess, in a way. Although I don't have to say the same unless I choose to.
Yes.
So, I it's okay, she's she feels comfortable now. When I call her, she'll say, she doesn't really say she likes it here, but she'll just say, I got everything I need here. It's not so bad. And, I have my little room and my chair, and she has we got her a room that has some sliding glass doors so she can look outside. And there's a tiny little patio there.
Okay.
Not that she would probably sit out there, but nonetheless,
she can
she
look
can look
out.
out.
Yeah, she can look out.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your mom is capable of telling you how she does feel and that she's
Exactly.
okay.
She is. Even with the short-term memory problems, she seems to be able to definitely get her needs, voiced, and what she wants, and she's just got some insight and can reason.
Okay.
So which is good.
How is it going with the visitation with the coronavirus now?
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay.
So my brother can't even see her, and he lives up there, and he's very close. So when we moved her in middle of April, they knew I was from out of town. They actually let me visit her more than once and stay with her in her room, as long as the door was closed. And so we got to visit quite a bit. I brought my husband with me, and so he helped us move a few of her items in there. And when she, walked into the room, she's like, "Oh, there's my chair,"
Very good.
"Oh, there's my lamp," and
that made
we
it
actually
home.
hung up.
Very good.
So pictures, a few, keepsakes and stuff like that, on some shelves. Yeah, so trying to bring in, some familiar, but it's very difficult when someone has poor short-term memory, and she knows who she is, but then she'll forget where she's at, why she's there. And every morning, or, I think when she wakes up, she has to sort of remind herself and reorient herself. And it'd be so nice to family to come in and just another familiar person to just say, hey, this is who you are, and this is where you're at.
Yes.
Here's what's going on. And so that's not happening, not just for my mother, but a lot of all these people who are in these facilities, and it's unfortunate.
Well, and on that note, I do want to ask you one other question about that. And then we'll be signing off in just a little bit. I want to thank you for your willingness to share your story. It's just very, very honest, and I really appreciate you. And I was wondering, talking about the other residents and other families, what kind of advice would you give someone that's in this same situation?
Hopefully things are just a little bit different. I don't know if they are allowing people to go visit. If you had to place your parent in a facility, to physically go in there is so important, I think. And I would think you could do it if you wore a mask and just briefly, had a tour or something. So, and just, I think that is important. I guess, the other thing is, I guess it's a lot of people now have cell phones. Maybe your parent could have a cell phone to communicate with, things like that would be really easy. And, or maybe just, I think you can send items, and you can drop them off, things like that, whether it be a note or an item or some food. And of course, I did, pictures and things like that in her room of family and so forth.
That was
It's
a great
really
idea.
not ideal, so.
Well, and we had talked before, and if you are allowed to be there in person, you had mentioned how important it was to make sure that you stay present with that person.
Definitely. I think, well, I just know too in my work and with my mother, she wants to be listened to. So just that active listening. And even though a lot of times she repeats herself and she will say and repeat the same story that I've heard many times, it's okay. And I just listen and just interject. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, or just something. And that is so important, I think, because they're telling their story and they just want to be heard.
Yes.
And I think that's very important for someone at this point in their life. You know, my mother talks about dying and she wants to know more about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only give her so much information. Be nice too to have someone who's more knowledgeable in that area, perhaps a minister or someone like that to talk to her. And maybe other older people would appreciate that as well because they're
Yes.
in a transition, different part of their life. So this is they're reflecting a lot on their
Yes.
life.
Oh, I appreciate you so much, Kelly. I appreciate your openness about all this and your suggestions.
Mhm.
And with that, we do need to sign off. I appreciate your time and your story. And I want to
You're welcome.
also your well, thank you, and a big thank you to our listeners too. And that I hope our stories have somehow helped you all out there in a small way or a big way. And the next time you see a hawk, you do what we do. You think of somebody that you know and you just send them out a wonderful wave of love. Thank you. Until next time.